Welcome back to DigitalxADB. This is the Asian Development Bank signature event that brings together technology and people. I'm Carolyn Cabrera from the Digital Innovation Sandbox program. Today, through the end of the month, we aim to inspire and challenge you with DigitalxADB's main sessions on digital infrastructure, work, economy, and government. A tech expo features the latest in technology with partner vendors and startups, and a digital experience gallery showcases ADB's best technologies. They're all open 24/7, so it's very convenient for you to visit. Do check them out. Navigating the reset has presented huge challenges for all of us as individuals. So just imagine how complicated things get if you're responsible for large, complex organizations and figuring out the way forward. It is now my honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Bruce Gosper, ADB Vice President for Administration and Corporate Services and Chair of the ADB IT and Data Committee. He'll be speaking on navigating the reset for organizations with an emphasis on how digital technologies can be used to create a better normal now. Over to you, VP.
So, hello everybody. It's great to join you here for what should be a really interesting and provocative panel discussion. So, I'd like to take a few minutes before we begin to talk a little bit about digital in the ADB. And of course, perhaps we can talk first about what happened over the past couple of years, then reflect on where we are now, and then think a little bit about what lies ahead. So, of course, if we go back to March 2020, a lot of things changed overnight, and we began to talk about digital as the new normal. Well, digital is the new normal, but in a way we hadn't really thought about it before, which was more than just online banking and e-commerce, but thinking much more fundamentally about how we keep things going, how we actually deliver administration and services when we have a workforce that's distributed across 6 continents. When we're truly disrupted in what lies ahead and doing things in a very different way. And I think it's quite remarkable what the bank was able to do. Our 5,000 odd staff reaching out and delivering in a remarkable way grants and loans and services of one sort or another to our clients, to people in the region that were so badly affected, of course, by the pandemic disruption. So I think that's a remarkable thing and something that we can all feel very proud of. Those in the ADB, whether it was in HR and procurement, legal, government relations, security, building management, but in particular the IT area. And what they delivered was just first rate and something we can all be very proud of. Now, if we look at where we are now, of course, we're facing, well, what we call as the future of work. So it's more than just dealing with the consequences of the pandemic. It's thinking about what digital means to the shape of what we do from here on in. So it's not the future of work. The future has come to visit us and it's staying. So we now begin to think about the safe return to work, about hybrid work, and things like vaccination and testing arrangements around how we'll manage HR when we're working from home, around business travel as we look to get closer to clients. We're already seeing the sorts of changes around, of course, things like our annual general meeting, around how we do digital signatures, around virtual missions to places that we haven't been able to travel to for quite some time. So all of that, of course, is happening now, and we're thinking much more deeply around how we actually do this over the period ahead. And there'll be some interesting reflections over the course of this segment, I'm sure, about those sorts of things. I do want to talk about what lies ahead for the organisation. So if you forgive me, in Australia, when we talk about running an engine on fumes, we talk about running something on the smell of an oily rag. And frankly, I think the digital agenda in the ADB, we've been trying to run it on just the smell of an oily rag. So that's a great credit to our IT people and its business partners across the bank. It's remarkable what we've been able to do on pretty limited resources over a long period of time, but it's really not sustainable. If we want this bank to be a truly modern 21st century institution, it has to have the efficiencies and productivities that deep digitalization will give it. If we want this bank to be a knowledge bank that's able to unlock the benefits of things like integrated data ecosystems and all those sorts of things, and more fundamentally serve our clients, then we really do need to mainstream digitalization in the bank. So it's more than just triaging, it's more than just evolving our systems to something that's more contemporary. We have to mainstream digitalization across the bank. And that's going to require much more concerted investment and effort by everybody to achieve that sort of outcome. So with that, reflecting on the remarkable journey of the past couple of years, on what we're trying to do now, and on the big agenda that lies ahead for digitalization, I'm very excited to welcome you to this discussion. I look forward to learning from our speakers' experience, and I hope that you'll enjoy what promises to be a very productive discussion. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so very much, VP, for setting the stage for the panel, Navigating Normal Now, and the challenges that organizations face. The speakers in this panel will be tackling how to move organizations forward in our uncertain environment while not forgetting about today. I'm most pleased to introduce our moderator for today, Mr. Ram Lakshminarayanan, partner at KPMG Singapore. Ram, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, Caroline, and very good morning to everyone. And it's an honor to be here today amongst all of the ADB members and to talk on something that's remarkably important in current circumstances. So thank you so much for that. 31st of December 2019 was when the world got to know about this dreaded word, COVID. We are fast approaching the second year anniversary of that. Not a great distinction, but nevertheless important in our lives. It changed the world forever from what it used to be, and it became a topsy-turvy world as we know it. If I kind of take back and kind of go through this, what we went through, and I think it'd be important to set the stage before we go into some of the details around this. If you look at the initial period, there was a sense of panic. There was a sense of not knowing what to do for most organizations across the continents. And we all felt that it might not be something that would last longer. But as the details started to unravel, we realized that this is going to be perhaps something that will have a more permanent impact on the society, on the work that we do. And that's when the term new normal kind of got in, and we all started talking about it. And and we've all been dealing with this as we go through this process. and it's interesting to see now as we are in today, and looking back, this almost permanent kind of change that have started to become real for all of us, opened up a whole raft of issues, challenges, and more importantly, opportunities for businesses. And across the continents, organizations had to rapidly move themselves into these new ways of working and find a way to thrive while keeping the normal businesses going, but also be prepared for all the changes that come with that. Because one of the core things we have now realized is that, it's not, if things slow down a bit, if the COVID incidents come down, it's not necessarily permanent. It might spike back up again, and that might, set us back. And that's what countries in across the world have realized. If you look at three important shifts that have happened, or things that have become very prominent in this period of time, I want to talk about that in a moment. One of the biggest change had to do with a rapid move towards all things digital. Everything from our personal convenience in what we buy to how boardrooms and board meetings are conducted went digital. And in between that, there's a significant shift everyone had to make. And therein was a huge challenge for organizations that were not prepared for that kind of a shift. And rapidly, everyone had to discover technologies and implement those technologies in place to ensure that the work is not disrupted and people can continue to work and what they need to deliver. In fact, the second of that has got to do with what we call as work from home. What was first, to begin with, a forced work from home has morphed into work from anywhere to work from anywhere kind of a concept. We recently at KPMG released our global Future of HR survey, and that had about 18 pathfinders, HR leaders across the globe, tackling exactly these issues for themselves and what does that mean and what does it mean for their organizations to move forward and what are they doing specifically to address that. It was quite interesting when we looked at the whole concept of remote working. Initially, there was a lot of concerns about how that's going to work and what impact it's going to have on productivity. But then from out of that came some opportunities. 3 out of the 4 CEOs that we spoke to actually said they now see this as a better way to organize for talent that might be available in any part of the world and be able to have access to that talent pool. And that for business leaders is something very critical in this new age. So there was one, and on the other hand, if you look at organizations that spoke to us, one of them is Dropbox. And Dropbox actually moved all of its offices into collaboration spaces and studios. And they saw about 15% increase in hiring and 16% increase in their retention. So what it actually now, it's starting to give us the sense of remote working is not something that is a forced upon us. It's something that we could actually make use of and perhaps will give us more and more opportunities to better talent as it becomes available to us. The third and perhaps the most important of all was the recognition of the mental well-being. Organizations have always done their part in employees' wellness, but I think nothing else has brought forward in the way the current situation has brought mental well-being of all of our people into the forefront. And that's not something that would go away. That's something that will continue to evolve, and that'll be something that will be a lot of focus, and it is becoming boardroom discussions as well. And perhaps, I guess, therefore, the single biggest question for all of us is, as we navigate through this new normal, as we start to kind of get ready and prepared for these new ways of working, 2 things are going to be important. We need to move to the new ways of working. And how do we do that, and how rapidly and how effectively do we do that is going to make us much more competitive in the marketplace. But more importantly, it's also about how do we continue to respond to changes that might be inflicted upon us as we go through this process. So therein lies that set of challenges we need to talk through. And this is what I would like, this panel would like to be able to address and hear from 2 eminent panel members that I have today with me, and hear from them on what organizations are doing and how are they navigating this through and what can we learn from that experience. With that, I would like to first introduce Sumi Rowe, Director, Division of Administration, United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. And I'd very quickly have Sumi introduce herself and share some of her initial thoughts. But it'll be interesting to hear from her as she personally has navigated, moved across continents during this period of time. So with that, welcome, Sumi.
Thank you very much, Ram. Thank you, ADB colleagues, and all the participants that are attending today. Good morning, everyone. So as what Ram very nicely laid out, setting the tone, in the personal side of it, yes, I was actually in the hot zones in the past 12 months, moving from New York to London, then to Korea, and then to Bangkok. So in all that navigating journey, I'm actually really happy and honored to join today to share the UN journey, and also particularly in specific the ASCAP. We call it as ASCAP as a short form, ASCAP's journey in the past pandemic, through the pandemic, and how we actually navigated to embrace the digital transformation during the new normal period. So just on a very brief overview. So the digital, next slide, please. And then the digital transformation and the technologies was always there. But however, I think the key message that we wanted to share today was that the COVID, in a very strange way, acted as a catalyst to leverage full potential and becoming the best ally for our delivery of the service delivery in a people-centered way during the COVID period. So just a very quick overview to share with you the 3 key milestones that helped us navigate the journey. So pre-COVID and during COVID, and what we store in embracing the future of the new normal. So what happened before COVID? Next slide. So before the COVID times, as we said, the digital technology, the innovation, from the UN perspective, from our Secretary General and our Executive Secretary of the ASCA, the theme was the data-enabled business planning. All the innovation outset and the framework. However, we were still very lingering into the legacy system, and there was some inertia in relying more on the physical collaboration culture. And obviously with that, the limited events outreach. We are a global international organization. However, in all the conferences and meetings and reach outs and outreach, there were very still the limited, the virtual or the online or on that sort of the meeting perspective. So with that, another vicious cycle was a paper intensive office. And with that also then, although we had the wish list to go into digital transformation, we had relied a lot on the legacy and the IT solution system that didn't really help us to move to the next step. And the culture obviously was that there was a little resistance to really change and transform from the traditional workspace design to the activity-based workspace. And obviously not the least, that higher carbon footprint of the operation reliance was heavy. Then the COVID came, the game changer happened. And in the next slide, and no longer we could not continue the way we operated. So there was all of these old ways, the COVID and pandemic situation served as a catalyst to push us to expedite all of these business transformation processes. So with that, firstly, we had to use the leverage, the digital transformation as our business enabler. 2 notable examples that I can share. One that being the AI-enabled captioning system for all our meetings, which actually supported very positively for our social agenda, the disability inclusion agenda, which is a really notable thing. Another shift to the digital transformation was the business automation processes and platforms. So we're in the very repetitive manual processes, in the HR processes, as well as the procurement processes, and many other service management processes, we could actually transform into the virtual platform to reach out to more clients and customers than ever before. And with that, naturally, we were all going onto the virtual platform in the collaboration, and we discovered that we actually could communicate very effectively in a larger audiences through truly walking the talk of the global organization. And with that, we did not forget the people factor. Ram has nicely laid out that the importance of the mental health. And in fact, the October 10th marks the International Day of the World Mental Health. And in all that processes, it actually enabled us, the digital transformation enabled us to take a more people-centered HR policies, that we adopted the flexible working arrangement, alternative working arrangement that could people connect from anywhere, from any time of the day, and then to ensure the business continuity. And with that, we did not forget the people's balancing their work and life, and even with working with the young children who are all on the online schooling. So we have actually leveraged to provide the psychosocial mental counseling sessions virtually as well, which was a great initiative that really touched on many people's hearts as well. And obviously, with that, the virtuous results came along with the Greening the Blue, with the paperless office, with the e-signature, and paved our way to even to conduct the e-tendering processes, which will be able to actually to tap onto all of the corporate partners, or the potential corporate partners, to be attracted to join as our business partner for the international organization activities. And with that, the importance of the cultural shift, that it paved the way for the reimagining the office workspace to really take on and embrace fully to go to the new hybrid working modality. And last slide. And obviously, where do we go from here? So in a very cautious and anticipated way, after COVID, and we are with the COVID and to the more future ahead, the three main themes that we are evolving around these days. Technology. We want to leverage more of the digital technology to deliver better and to connect better. And with that, not forgetting the people, that we learned in a very positive way that there is not one size doesn't fit all, and that there's a flexibility options we can actually offer to our people that is shifting the working style to really to strike the right balance. And with that, and even for the space arrangement, the activity-based working will really create a conducive environment and really walk in the top of the global and international community in the organization. And in a closing, we are still, the word navigation, we are navigating, we are recalibrating, we are even updating our mapping process as we take this journey onward. But with that, we believe that all our efforts and going ahead will actually create a very sustainable, smart, and flexible workspace, really in support of the people who actually work towards building a better normal to support the people in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Srimi. That was really, really great to hear from you. And I picked up a lot of the points you made. I think is very relevant from what ADB is actually going through. And a lot of similarities can be found here. And we could learn a lot from you as we go in through some of more details when we come back for some of the questions. So, but thank you so much for that. And with that, it's my great pleasure to introduce my other co-panel member, Anela Haytons. She's the head of human resources for Amazon Web Services for Asia Pacific and Japan. And as we all know, Amazon Web Services is one of the shining lightning arm in the technology world, and have brought about a lot of changes in the way work is actually performed, COVID or not. And it would be great to hear from Anela, her points of views, and also a quick introduction about herself. The one interesting thing I did find about Anela while we were connected before the panel was the fact that she used to be a nutrition and a dietitian, but got fed up saying people to get better, and then but moved on to doing a lot more other things. With that, I would like to now welcome Anela to introduce herself. Anela.
Hello. Hi, good morning, everyone. And for my fellow kababayans, magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Very nice to be here. First of all, I wanted to thank my co-panelists for inviting me and for being here. Look, I come from a digital work environment in the sense that we're a tech company. However, we actually have been more of an office-based organization. So we like to work in the office because we believe that it's a cultural schoolhouse for innovation and a way that we can stay connected with our people, as well as understand what our customers are doing through others within the organization. So it's been interesting. I joined AWS right at the start of COVID, and I remember dropping my bag in my brand new office, and my assistant called me and said, "Okay, you now have to go to a coronavirus meeting, and you're chairing it." And so I walk into this big room, and there are 12 plus people there, and all looking at me saying, "Okay, what are we going to do today?" And so that was the beginning of my whole journey. And within a couple of weeks, we had to move to 100% remote work. So the fascinating thing was about this whole exercise was we were all in the same boat. We were all trying to figure out what this was going to look like for ourselves. the good news was because we have also been working kind of flexibly in the past, it was less difficult for us to pivot to moving to working remotely as a whole organization. But if you understand the scale that we had to change, it was massive because we were a work in the office culture as well. So quickly we had to pivot to, for example, doing all our interview processes. We're growing quite quickly in AWS. So we had to continue to hire employees. As you know, the cloud business is moving very fast these days. And so we're seeing a lot more companies migrate into the cloud. And so for us to be able to serve our customers and continue to serve our customers, we have to ensure that we have the staff and the employees to be able to serve our customers. So we had to continue to hire our people, and that wasn't very easy to do. So we had to shift our whole process to onboarding and hiring through remote means. And that was not very easy because I don't know if you're familiar with Amazon's interview process, but we go through what's called a hiring loop, which means that we have several people that are part of a panel of interviewers to query around what we call our leadership principles. So, so that wasn't very easy, but we made that all work, and we had several digital tools to do that. The second piece that was really important for us is our culture. So many of you may have heard about Amazon's 16 leadership principles. Those leadership principles are the glue that glues the whole organization as one. Whether you work for AWS or Twitch or Prime Video or Amazon Consumer or Kindle, we have the same principles across all the Amazon organizations, and we interview and we onboard our employees using our leadership principles. So we had to quickly figure out how to onboard our teams using these same principles, because it is the glue that keeps the whole organization as one Amazon. And that wasn't very easy to do as well, because we used to do all of the onboarding live in multiple sites. And so having to pivot that and trying to, it's hard to teach. You can't really teach culture. You have to imbibe it. You have to embrace it. You have to experience it through other people. And so trying to move that to remote and to digital was not that easy. But somehow we made that happen. And we had the tool called Embark, which is a tool that helps you onboard. And our adoption rate, we always strive for over 90%. Actually, 95% is our benchmark. And so we try to move that as quickly as possible so we can continue to inculcate or really make our new employees feel like they're part of the Amazon overall organization overall. So those just are some of the things that we've had to do, and we're still learning. Going digital doesn't end. It's a constant, how would I say this, journey of trying to figure out what are more things that we can do to make ourselves more digital. But as I said, it's a journey. We actually don't call it the new normal in Amazon. We call it the never normal, because it changes almost every minute and you just don't know what you're going to get. So it's really the never normal for us.
Yeah, thank you, Anela. The never normal is quite an interesting and probably more appropriate way of describing what we're all going through in terms of, you know, getting prepared for what are the eventuality and things that we need to be prepared for. But definitely there's changes that are starting to happen. So, and the other thing that was quite fascinating to hear as well, and Sumi, around the culture and the culture shift that organizations have to go through. And as you rightly pointed out, Anela, culture shift is not through introduction of technologies. It's about through the process of seeing others and you behaving and the behaviors that you bring to work, and how people learn from those behaviors, and how you hold the rest of the people to that standards is what brings culture together. So it's a great reminder for all of us as we go through this process. It's just not about, you know, some technologies being thrust upon us, because how do we embrace it and how do we then make that as part of our work culture? So thank you again very much. And perhaps with that, we probably go into some questions I have for you both. And and probably put you on on a spot here, but I hope we could learn a lot from just from those introductions. And also as a reminder for people in the call, please feel free to put up your questions, and we'll try and take as many as possible within the time that we have. But maybe perhaps if I can kick off, in the way I look at digital as a big disruption, and digital, if you kind of break it into, it's about convenience. It's about you not having to exert too much of an effort to get things done. But digital also, on the other side, means that it's remote. It's not face to face. It's never going to be where you're all in the same room and you're going to be digital. That's not what it is. Now that's an interesting phenomena, right? So it's quite a different kind of aspects of this. But given that, if I can ask you individually and to share with us, how do you see therefore your organizations preparing yourselves to be closer to your customers, closer to your clients, and in corporate services specifically, if I can also ask for some of your thoughts around delivering corporate services. You have internal stakeholders and external stakeholders in the equation. And that's a significantly important aspect of corporate services. So perhaps if I can ask for, what are some of the things you have done? What are you making this work from corporate services? What are some of the actual, things you have done might be of great learning for all of us. So perhaps if I could first invite Sumi and then Anela after that. Sumi?
Sure, thank you, Ram. That's a very thought-provoking question, which was actually the rhetorical question that we've been asking throughout this journey. And the UN, as an international organization, we consist of 193 nationalities. Just in the Regional Commission for the Asia Pacific, we have 64 nationalities just among our staffing perspective. And one of our key mandate, if you talk about the clients, that is really to ensure all the corporate services, but also the conferencing for all of these regional offices to take on. And in a political setting, sometimes to have the virtual negotiation is not the most optimal way at times. And I think throughout the journey that we were navigating, I think we can sort of like highlight it to the three pillars. One being, what is the hardware? What is the software? And where is the culture shift? And with that, I think throughout the journey, what we have learned and embraced was that to offer to our clients, the diverse toolkit is a must, whether being it virtual, whether being it in person, whether being a hybrid, and to make sure that whichever way of the modality that you connect, wherever you are connecting, that if we're able to target it, to have a same inclusive experience. And that's where it comes in terms of the hardware support, the software support, and also the culture shift, and also to enable the people to be rightly trained, whether being at the participants level, whether being at the organization level, whether being at the business enabler perspective. So I think throughout the journey of it all, we have been targeting at times to continue updating what is the right hardware support that we can provide to have a more diverse toolkits for our clients. One notable example, for example, because of these unique circumstances, we even managed to expand our service portfolio, the corporate service portfolio, to go beyond just the Asia Pacific or our UN entity in the Thailand perspective, but we were even able to support remotely of the similar time zone regional customers, which was not really tapped on before the COVID. So I think we are still, as what Anala said earlier, we're still navigating, we're still updating. And I believe that we will really, at the end of the day, our utopia will be to provide as much as diverse toolkits as possible to really to have a fit for purpose client experience.
That's great, Sumi. Thank you. And this diverse toolkit, as you talk about the hardware, the software, and the culture fit, I think it's critical to do that. And we'll probably ask later and a little bit more of the detail on some of those technologies you've embraced. But I think there's some very interesting aspects to what you just talked about. And perhaps if I can ask Anela, you come from the commercial world like I do, and the diversity of the clients is perhaps a lot more than perhaps in some of the other cases. But one of the things I've always keeping within the question, but I guess one of the challenges I've had in getting closer to our clients, it's not so much about your preparedness, it's about their preparedness as well. And we found that wanting in many cases. I had, for instance, clients who would only do like a video conference, just simple thing like a video conference had to be done within their premises. So, in the pre-COVID days, we would actually go to their offices and then conduct video conferences across countries. And then when the shift happened, they did not know how to do this. So for a while, we had a video conference tool, and then we had an audio bridge, both being made available. And so people had to dial into two of this for a period of time to get those meetings going. So we had all those challenges as we try to get closer to our clients, but very, very interested to hear from your perspective, Anela, how you guys have managed.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I actually had one experience as a consultant that way as well. So actually what we found is it made it easier for our senior executives to actually have more conversations with our customers because they didn't have to travel. So for example, it was impossible in the past to have Andy Jassy come to the region to meet, as many customers as possible. But now being remote, he's actually met a lot more customers here in the region than we have in the past, which is fantastic, right? I mean, we didn't have to have him fly. And corporate executives like that usually fly with security and all kinds of other situations. So we didn't have that. And so we found that our executives in Seattle were meeting a lot more of our customers than they did in the past. So that was actually a positive. But one of the things we also found to be true is that we were doing a lot more EBCs, executive briefing centers, with our customers, where we get invited to speak about different topics. And that became a lot easier to organize because in the past you couldn't sync calendars. You couldn't sync calendars. You had to travel, to your point, to different places, and you couldn't get everybody in the same room. So it was much harder to organize. But with this, working remotely and digitally, it's been a lot easier. In fact, I have one tomorrow with a Korean conglomerate, and we managed to bring together a whole host of different executives to this briefing center. And I think in the past, that would have been almost impossible to fly everyone to Korea, where we had time and we would take months and months to make that happen. But there's one really interesting thing in Amazon that I wanted to share with you is we have a training session, or when you first start in Amazon, there's a module called Customer Obsession. And basically they tell you what Amazon Customer Obsession is. And what that Customer Obsession training is they make you listen to past calls that customer makes to our call centers. And I think that was really effective because you hear live what the customer is talking about. Like, so for example, there was this entrepreneur who was using AWS as his platform for his business. And he calls the call center and he says, oh my gosh, I've now spent thousands of dollars on the platform. I can't afford this. I was budgeting this much money only. And then the customer service rep said, well, there's a way you can monitor your utilization of how much you've spent on your cloud services. And here's how you turn on that button and how you do that. And he said, yeah, but I have to now pay tens of thousands of dollars for the overutilization. He said, no, don't worry, I'll write that off. But you make sure you've got that turned on. And so you realize that's what customer obsession is all about. You're not there for the short term, you're there for the long term. You're playing the long game. But then what's more interesting is every Prime Day, you have you get a calendar invite to listen to live Prime Day. For those who don't know Prime Day is the 24-hour sale in Amazon, and we have that every quarter. So you get to sign up to actual live calls. They have 30-minute slots you can sign up and listen to, and they're fascinating to listen to. So I sign up every quarter because I sign up in different parts of the world. So I can sign up in Europe, I can sign up in America, I can sign up in India, and you get to listen to live customer conversations. And what that does to you is just remind you what are some of the things that happen straight in front of customers that, that's worth listening to. And I think it's a great tool that reminds our employees all across Amazon that the customer is first. So it's a good tool for all of us.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Anela. That's quite an interesting, customer obsession has been the hallmark of Amazon as a whole. And I think it's manifesting in the way you manifested that in the new ways or the never normal ways. It's quite fascinating. So it's great to hear that. Thanks so much for it. Perhaps if I can focus a little bit more in some of the details here, and that perhaps is my next set of questions. We talked about digital technologies, and you both talked about digital technologies that are going to be very critical in continuing to provide these services and having no disruption. And Sumi, you talked about a couple of those technologies during your introduction as well. Perhaps for the benefit of all of us, if I could ask of you to share with us what are some of those technologies in specific corporate services areas, let's say procurement or HR or finance or even legal for that matter. What are some of those technologies that you actually brought in, and what kind of difference has it made for you? And maybe perhaps if you can give us a couple of those examples, that would be great. Maybe this time around, I'll probably ask Anela and then Sumi after that. Anela?
Sure. So I can only speak for HR because I'm in HR. So let Sumi speak for all the other corporate services. But so in HR, I think we've tried our best to embrace as many tools as we can. So one of the things that I already mentioned about the hiring processes, so we tried our best to do that. But one of the things that we started to look at was our performance system. We had what we did is we brought it into one platform called Ivy, which then links all our talent processes together. And that's an ingrown tool. We basically did that internally. And that was just so we have a one performance management approach that covers everything from basically the employee life cycle, really trying to do the hiring, the promotions, the calibrations, the talent reviews, and so on. So we tried to bring that all together in one digital platform. And that helped us to have better integration into the processes. Another thing we did, because as you know, hiring is a big thing for us, but scheduling, the number of phone screens and all the processes related to talent acquisition had to really be looked at. But one of the most clunky, I know it's not sexy, but one of the clunkiest things was to schedule time with the recruiters, schedule time with the executives. So we've automated that with a tool called Prelude, so that we actually put the scheduling in the hands of the candidates rather than into our hands. So they can see all the availability of when they can actually schedule meetings. And that way we've taken that out of the past of a lot of back and forth. Now it's very, very mainstream. So that would be a really good example of that. Another thing that we've done is we've used a tool called, a very simple tool from Salesforce called Quip. And basically that keeps us collaborating with each other. So when COVID hit, for example, in India, and we were trying to find oxygen concentrators, all kinds of different equipment across for various different Amazon employees and even our customers who needed help. Then we just had Quip to kind of update on where we had what and who was going to deliver what to who. So it, again, a very scrappy way of just trying to do things real time. And that's what I think digital is about. It's the way of working rather than a tool. It's how you change your mindset so you can use something as simple as Quip, which is basically an online collaboration tool, just to deliver something as important as an oxygen concentrator to the right person, the right place, the right time. So it's that mindset of being digital that's more important than the actual tool.
Thank you, Anela. I really like that, this opening up of the scheduler. I think, that takes away a whole lot of challenges associated with just getting interviews scheduled and all of that. I think that's a very good example of how, you shifted. And also the other one you talked about, Quip. These are all the shifts that we needed to make and the quick innovations that we needed to make to keep things going. So thank you so much for sharing about it. And perhaps now, Sumi, if we could ask for your experience as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, it's a huge topic to cover. And if I just narrow it down to going back to our definition of clients. So in the UN setting, in terms of the clients, we call it the delegates, our member states, and then our own people. And within our UN system, there are many, many different UN agencies, right? So, and then we also have our, like both of you, we have our corporate business partners, also our clients, right? So in terms of that, I think what we've been doing so far in a very notable example, for example, in the delegates setting, right? So we now have the combination of the hybrid, and we are working towards that to have a hybrid conferencing and a hybrid meeting possibilities. So, and obviously at one point of time when the pandemic was really bad, we went 100% digital and 100% virtual. But obviously that paved our way to have the learning processes to prepare what are the possibilities to really do the hybrid, because we then had a positive learning that we could actually attract and outreach many, many more participants than what we had before. And in the Bangkok perspective, we have in the UN building, we have 29 different UN system entities that are housed in the building. And during the COVID times, because of our the cloud platform and our digital toolkits, we could actually do a lot more collaboration in a very positive way. Anela mentioned earlier about this video conferencing. We were the gigantic dinosaur in a sense that we actually had to arrange a very costly video conferencing facilities. But in these days, I tell my clients all over the world, I'm just a click away. And that really broke the boundaries. And for that, and I think that's important to highlight that, in all our efforts, we actually successfully lowered the bar of what people have in mind about the digital processes and, all this toolkits and all that, because not everyone is on the same par on embracing and accepting and being, socializing the technology, new technology. So we wanted to be really inclusive. And then sometimes we had a very, innovative ideas, creative ideas about the discovery series, lunchtime brown bag sessions, and even to arrange the peer-to-peer support to sort of like to lower the bar of not fearing the new technologies. And obviously with our corporate partners, I think that was a real breakthrough because we really went closer. The UN world has actually gone closer to the outside world because, like, for example, in the business seminars, what we had in the traditionally may have gathered the interest of the 100 corporate partners. With the virtual and the hybrid options, I think there is no limit. It's a limitless of the outreaching. And we even doing the career fair these days to the any potential interested university graduates or the other in the workforce. And I think that's really getting really closer in just a click away.
Sure. Sumi, thanks so much. And I was quite curious when you talked about the use of AI and perhaps if you could share a thing or two about how you're putting AI to use, because I think of all the technologies that we talked about that are going to have a significant impact on the society as a whole, artificial intelligence is really right at the top. And so, maybe for the benefit of the audience, if you could perhaps share a thing or two about what are you doing with that. Thank you.
Right. So I think you really, in addition to the two notable examples that I shared, there are like HR processes. We were relying a lot on the like paper-based or different toolkits that we were different platforms that we were having, but the AI-enabled automation process actually allowed us to connect. As I mentioned, sometimes that even helped to the interagency collaboration. In the past, we had like even within the UN Secretariat setting, we had sometimes 29 databases. It was impossible, right? And I think throughout the AI-enabled and this process actually allowed us to have an integrated process. And for that, it really helped us to push a lot of the silos and boundaries that we have been having. And that was really a remarkable breakthrough. Another example I can give is like, and the data enabled the dashboard management. We used to have a very manual driven like key performance indicators, and then we will put out the Excel charts to see comparing to the past and the current and the future. But I think this digital leveraging, and particularly the AI-enabled business processes, actually, we are really walking the talk of the data-enabled decision-making processes. Then it actually teaches us what is the past patterns that we will actually review and then to build upon to create the forward-looking decision-making process. And I think that's something that we are continuously evolving and continuously leveraging to go forward.
Thanks, Sumi. And I asked that, and I think you answered in the right way. AI is probably going to be one of those technologies that will profoundly change the way we work and reduce the amount of repetitiveness, or what I call this as a virtual boundaryless organization. In the physical boundary, we're all bounded by functional, organization structures, but I think there's more and more discussions going around to be boundaryless, and it's these kind of shift that you think about in the way you use AI or other technologies to bring things together will create that boundaryless. And one important aspect of that is skills. And one of the things we do at KPMG, for instance, is we are making all our consultants data aware. And that's an interesting shift of skills. And this is the learning that our staff have to go through, because it's not just about some technology that'll work on its own. Now you have to understand how that works, and you have to be familiar with the new. So it's about new skills, new capabilities that you would get to pick up as well. And that would be some motivation for people as well to embrace the new ways of working, because you're learning something new and different, and that'll help you in your career as well. So thank you so much for sharing. We do have a question from the audience, and I thought it would be appropriate for us to take that on. And if I can just read out the question, it says, many experts have mentioned that the COVID pandemic may not be the last pandemic, God forbid, that modern society may experience. With that in mind, what is the future of work? Completely going back to the traditional physical office, transitioning to online or a hybrid sort of culture office, and how organizations play a role in this new way of working towards a post-COVID pandemic setting. Maybe, Sumi, you want to take it first, or you just finished yours, and maybe I'll ask Anela first, and then you could come back. Anela, would you like to take that?
Sure. I think we're going to now, at least us, but I think many organizations are moving to hybrid models, because I like in our organization, we still believe it's important to have face time with people and to connect, to stay connected. Personally is always a good thing. So we do want to encourage our employees to still have a place they can go and call an office, but then they're also, I would say, encouraged to think about working remotely, particularly for their specific situations. So we are actually in the process now of trying to figure out what this looks like. And the guidelines we've provided have been quite general so that the leaders have the flexibility to decide what works for their organization. They can decide which roles can be fully remote, which roles need to be hybrid, which roles need to be in the office. And so I think that flexibility has now been assigned to the leaders of the organization and the managers to make that decision. So, but in our situation, it's going to be a hybrid work environment. And I think many organizations are looking at that for the future. One thing's clear though, if we are going to see another pandemic, we have to, hopefully we've learned our lessons and we can move quickly to move to a remote work environment. And I think that's going to have to be the default mechanism for us to ensure that we keep our employees safe.
Thanks, Anila. Sumi,
I can echo what Anila said. I mean, for us as well, I think I've already sort of laid out that we are walking towards the hybrid conferencing, hybrid working modality. And I think that through the lessons learned, it has also given us a lot of the flexibility as a manager as well, but also as a staff to offer different diverse toolkits again. And I think it really then boils down to what is the program criticality that certain workforce, whether in the different fields that you are, some of the flexibility will offer both the staff and the management to determine who is to be conducting the work site functions at the given time. And for that, it will also allow us to have a room to reprofile our workforce and to suit for the better for people purpose. And that gives us even an opportunity to redesign the workspace that are more collaborative, that allows us to do the hybrid modality. And as I said earlier, that really is a trio combination of the hardware support, our software support, and the training support, and the whole cultural shift that will really take us to the next round. So yes, the hybrid is in the pipeline. And in fact, yesterday was our first day of our phase 1 to the return to office in the Bangkok situation. So that really allowed us to balance the safety and health of the workforce, but at the same time to enable us to do the business continuity planning.
Right, thank you for that. Just to share my perspective on this, because we did a surveys as well. I think the business leaders are divided in this. There are some prominent business leaders who have come out and said, come back to the office. And, and some of the global banks and the likes of Microsoft, coming out and saying, bring them back into the office, come back and work from office. So they are quite divided in their thoughts around this thing. And it's for all practical reasons, because some of the ideation strategy type of sessions, you can't do this completely remotely. I think there is something that's missing in the equation. So that's where they're coming from. But I think one thing so therefore, while everyone's kind of tending towards a hybrid kind of a model as the potential model going forward, one thing that's certain is that employees matter in this. And their opinion matters the most in this. And it's quite a contrast, because most employee surveys around the world, if you look at it, most people prefer to have that flexibility to decide when they want to come back to the office. They do want to come back to the office. And we've not seen anyone saying, no, we want to completely work from home, except for some cases, but largely people do want that networking, connectivity, working together with people, which is the most important aspect of the work culture that you want to build. So people do want to come back, but they want to come back at their own, flexible way. So I think that's what will set the pace and the tone of how this will be taken up. The second one is around the workspace, as you called rightly, both of you called out. Creating that environment for people to collaborate and work, both, in a kind of a hybrid way, physical and remote, combining and working together is what we are seeing as part of that. So thank you for the question. I hope we've answered that. If I can move on to the next question in the interest of time, but please feel free if you have any questions, we'll try and answer them either live or maybe we can type the answer for you. maybe shifting a little bit to talking about leadership during this period of time. And we're seeing leadership from two perspectives. One, as leaders, what have you navigated, what changes you had to bring about in yourselves? The other way I want to, also seek your experiences. How have your leaders in your organization had to be prepared for this new norm? And personally for me, one thing I know a lot more about my employees' family than they probably would have known in the last 15 years I've been with them. I know who their children are. I know, everything goes on in the family, and you come to live with that. You build a sense of empathy. You build a sense of, connectedness in that whole process. Makes you think a little bit about creating that balance between work and life, because that was one of the worst things that happened during pandemic, is everyone ended up working 12, 14 hours, and most of the time, on a phone call or on a video call, and that created a lot of problems. So we're now getting a little bit more conscious around these things, but we have to still educate a lot of our leaders about it, on what they need to do. So with that, perhaps if I can ask Sumi, you might, what is your journey, and what have you learned in this process, and maybe what you guys are doing for your other leaders as well?
Thank you very much. It's a really very important question, particularly in the UN setting. And I think while we can say that we are still recalibrating, we are updating, I think it was really the people-centered business continuity planning, whether being it return to office perspective, whether being it, going for the hybrid working modality. I think there was always this from our leadership, starting from the SG again to our executive secretary of our regional commission, the whole the motto was, how do we strike the balance, right, between to have an empathetic leadership towards the people in the times of the pandemic, especially what you said. A lot of the working parents, not just working moms, but working parents, really had to take on this additional burden. And obviously, with the remote working, it really increased the working hours, and there was a no boundaries, whether it's lunchtime, is it evening time, or because we were just one click away from everywhere. All of a sudden, personally, like the meetings with the New York and Africa and Europe was everywhere. So, and I think in that, I think the real leadership challenge was that striking the right balance. And also, and I think we mentioned earlier that the mental health well-being, I cannot emphasize and underestimate again the importance to do that balancing. And I think when I mentioned the hybrid working modality, to have an inclusive approach, and also not forgetting that as we also conducted a survey, quite a number of personnel and staff wanted to come back to office. They're missing that human touch. And I think in all that, the real leadership theme as we navigate this journey will be really to strike the right balance.
Sure. Thank you so much for that, Sumi. Anela, I'm not going to ask you to respond to this in the interest of time, but you did share with us, and so that I remind the audience about the leadership principles that Amazon is so popular for and famous for, and what impact it has had through this process. So maybe perhaps as a wrapping kind of a perspective, Anela, if you could give your perspective as a wrap up of this for the session. Over to you.
Sure. So my closing here would be, we have to all embrace digital. It's here to stay. It's not going away. In fact, it's going to be much more pervasive across organizations. And so everybody's mindset has to shift from how can we do things more digitally in the future, because that is just going to be the way we continue to work for so many reasons and on so many fronts. So that's one. And then the second thing is, we need to embrace that we're going to need to upskill ourselves in this new digital world. We cannot just stay static, that there's a lot of learning that we need to do to understand technology, to understand how it differs from what we did in the past. And, there's a lot more that we need to do to ensure that we've got the skills to make it to the digital world. It isn't enough to just say, I know how to use a computer, an iPad, or a phone. We do have to get better educated about what digital is all about for ourselves, but also for the people who work with us and who work for us.
Thank you so much, Sumi and Anela. Really, really appreciate all of that insights you've shared with us. Quite good experiences in there, and a lot of sharing that I think will be quite effective and helpful for everyone. So thank you so much again for joining me in this panel. And with that, I'm going to hand this over back to Caroline.
Thanks so much, Ram, Sumi, and Anela for such an excellent discussion. As I listened, I felt there were a lot of rays of sunshine coming through the storm clouds of the pandemic and our shift in recent months. So there's more access to global talent, better skills, elevated concern for mental health, cultural shifts, greater efficiencies, more customer interaction, AI, boundary-less workplaces, and of course, we won't ever forget, never normal. I love that one, Anela. That's really awesome. I'm sure that'll catch on here at ADB too. So please, everyone, remember there's a lot more coming in DigitalxADB in the next few days. Tomorrow, we have decentralized digital finance and a session on the first iteration of ADB's new data ecosystem, AID. Thursday will bring us CIO perspectives on the future of work and live sessions on cybersecurity and the Digital Innovation Sandbox. Lastly, Friday is Live Day at the Tech Expo, plus a celebration of the integrated disbursement system. It's been a long journey and it's great to celebrate. So, and don't forget to check out the booths and all of the Tech Expo 24/7. Before we wrap up, we ask that you do a quick poll. It just takes about 10 seconds. And we thank you very much in advance for doing this, and we really appreciate your feedback. Thanks again for attending, and this concludes the panel discussion. Next on our agenda today is the announcement ceremony for ADB Amazon Web Services Cooperation Arrangement. It brings me pleasure to turn the floor over to Ozair Khan, Director for Digital Innovation at ADB. Over to you, Ozair.
Thank you, Caroline. Welcome to the partnership announcement based on the cooperation agreement between Amazon Web Services and Asian Development Bank. We have been working on this arrangement for the last year or two. Because of the pandemic, it was pushed back to 2021. So glad to be here to conclude this. We will be hearing from the leaders of the two organizations, Mr. Peter Moore, Regional Managing Director of Asia Pacific and Japan, and also Public Sector from Amazon, and our own VP Gosper. Before we get started, I'm going to request our Director General for IT, Shireen Hamid, to say a few words. Over to you, Shireen. Shireen, you're on mute.
Right, good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ozair. All right, today we're celebrating a new partnership with the Asian Development Bank and the Amazon Web Services. In 2018, we launched ADB's Digital Agenda, and in the Digital Blueprint, it provides the vision and the roadmap for the ADB's digital transformation. We then embarked on a tri-model approach to deliver the roadmap, keeping the lights on, growing the organization, and I think most importantly, future-proofing the bank. The key program towards future-proofing the bank is the Digital Innovation Sandbox. The Sandbox program aimed to drive digital innovation in a systematic way, in a safe way, to prepare the bank for the future by experimenting with new digital technologies that allow the bank to understand new technologies and envision potential benefits. Now, in doing so, partnership plays a key role in digital innovation and has been the cornerstone of the Sandbox program since 2019. Today, ADB is thrilled to partner with AWS, and we're looking forward to working together with you on the impactful projects through the Sandbox program in consultation with and in support of various departments in the bank. The cooperation arrangement will further advance the effort and work on developing and upscaling emerging innovative solutions, especially based on cloud computing technologies, to meet Asia and the Pacific needs in tackling institutional and development challenges. While the bank has benefited from cloud technologies to be resilient, especially with the ongoing pandemic, we want to be able to experiment with new uses that will combine cloud computing with technologies like blockchain, drones, robotics, AI, machine learning, digital trading, Internet of Things, and more. So this partnership will hopefully give both of us, AWS and the bank, great opportunities to serve the Asia Pacific region even better. Back to you, Ozir.
Thank you, Shireen. And now moving over to the main part of the ceremony, please join me in welcoming Mr. Peter Moore, Regional Managing Director from AWS. Over to you, Peter.
Great, thanks. Hello, I'm Peter Moore. I'm the Public Sector Regional Managing Director for Asia Pacific and Japan at AWS. We're really pleased to be here today to announce the signing of this cooperation arrangement between AWS and the Asia Development Bank. We recognize how important ADB is in the region, and it's a privilege to engage in this partnership for a better Asia. Since 1966, ADB's played a crucial role in the economic and social development of Asia Pacific. And over this time, the bank has always championed technology and innovation with the goal of achieving a prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable Asia Pacific, whilst maintaining its efforts to eradicate extreme poverty. We applaud the bank's focus on digital technology as a driver for expanded economic growth, and this agreement is an excellent example of ADB's investment in partnerships that can impact every person and organization in Asia. We certainly believe that ADB is on the right course for success as the bank continues to drive innovation. We are pleased to establish this partnership to further advance ADB's mission and to travel this journey with you. As the world's largest cloud service provider, we see firsthand every day how digital transformation can change lives to be more agile and competitive, enabling governments to deliver their missions more effectively, bring scale and agility to the way governments have responded to the pandemic, and encouraging more children to have access to education, even when they're forced to do their schooling from home. At AWS, we're optimistic about the future. We believe we're just getting started. The opportunities for cloud and digital transformation in Asia are enormous. And every year we continue to grow our infrastructure globally, and we're not done yet. Asia represents approximately 2/3 of the world's population, and that's a lot of people that we want to reach and a lot of challenges that we want to solve. We certainly believe that the partnership with ADB through this cooperation arrangement will enable both of our organizations to reach these populations in impactful ways. Whilst this cooperation arrangement formalizes the basis of our collaborations, we've already engaged with ADB on some significant activities over the past 2 years. For example, in 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic was just starting, we worked with ADB and WHO to build a call center proof of concept using Amazon Connect to support inquiries and provide advice for the general public. Also, last year, we co-hosted a 3-part webinar series on digital transformation for bank staff, and we're planning to do much more. In March this year, we participated in ADB's Southeast Asia Development Symposium, and sponsored a hackathon on tourism recovery in the post-COVID-19 era. Most recently, we signed a co-publishing agreement with the bank, and we're currently working with ADB on a data modernization paper. The early findings of this paper are expected to be shared during this DigitalxADB event. And as I said earlier, we're not done yet. We look forward to many more engagements with ADB that will bring innovation to the bank's mission and provide impactful knowledge and solutions that ADB can bring to your developing member countries. Also along the way, we hope to support ADB's move to the cloud and look forward to helping you on your own digital transformation journey. In closing, I'd like to highlight a few AWS initiatives that are aligned to ADB. As a corporation, we're dedicated to an aspiration for social impact, government innovation, economic development, and sustainability. I'll give you a few examples. First, on social impact. The AWS Global Social Impact team leads our social impact efforts worldwide and is part of our nonprofit organization business. We stand up for underserved communities globally by providing transformative insights, technology, and support to accelerate and scale the work of organizations across some key focus areas, including disaster preparedness and response, which includes our COVID-19 programs and diagnostic development initiative, rights and equity, which includes efforts to combat human trafficking, reduce recidivism, and support minority-owned businesses. Employee volunteer and give back opportunities through our community and employee engagement team, and access to foundational data sets and cloud-native tooling through our open data team. Second, another aspect of our work is government innovation. It is part of our DNA, and we drive innovation in the public sector through a number of different programs. One in particular is our Open Government Solutions. This program compiles a variety of resources into a catalogue of open source code, standards, and practices implemented by governments around the world. There are solutions that can be downloaded at no cost to governments anywhere and represents the best of breed solutions that have been created by countries like the UK, Australia, and others. Open Government Solutions accelerate government's digital transformation by highlighting successful efforts in the public sector that can be adopted. Third, economic development. Industry research groups such as IDC have confirmed in the past that what we at AWS have always believed, that cloud drives IT innovation, which drives business innovation and business revenues, and in turn drives job creation, which is the cornerstone of economic development. In a recent study, IDC cites the worldwide growth of cloud-generated jobs was 20 to 30% CAGR from 2012 to 2015 across both public and private sectors, including tech and non-tech related employment. In our own studies, we've concluded that technology-driven innovation is one way public institutions can drive economic development. As organizations increasingly embrace cloud-based solutions, long-lasting effects can be realized in the form of community-wide collaboration, partnerships with local businesses, and increased innovation. And finally, on sustainability. Amazon's committed to building a sustainable business for our customers and the planet. This is why we have set big, bold sustainability commitments. In 2019, Amazon co-founded the Climate Pledge, a commitment to be net zero carbon across all of our businesses by 2040, 10 years ahead of the Paris Agreement. We continue to invite others to join us. Amazon is also committed to powering our worldwide operations with 100% renewable energy by 2025. In fact, in 2020, we were the world's largest corporate purchaser of renewable energy and reached 65% renewable energy across our business. Furthermore, we work with our customers to help them meet their own sustainability goals with AWS Cloud. And to that point, according to a recent report by 451 Research, if companies in APAC move their IT workloads to the cloud from on-premise infrastructure, they can reduce their carbon emissions by 78%. All of these innovations and initiatives I've shared are testament not only to the transformative power of digitalization and modernization, they also demonstrate the ability of the human spirit to thrive in the face of adversity. If recent history has taught us anything, we can be certain that change is the only constant. With digital transformation at the heart of a long-term economic strategy, we can be sure that when life throws us a curveball, we can bend, respond, and adapt without breaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for inspiring words. And now from ADB, we have VP Gosper. Over to you, VP.
Well, thanks very much, Ozier, and it's a delight to join Shirin and Peter here today. Hello, Peter. Peter and I have jointly signed a document, but I don't think we've actually met. But it was good to hear Peter talk about all the quite remarkable things that Amazon Web Services have been pioneering over the last few years, and in particular the intersection of interests with the bank, both existing and of course where we're moving now. So this is for us, I think, a quite important public-private partnership. Allow us to access innovative skills and resources in a way which will produce plenty of opportunity and advancement of one sort or another. It's very much an ITD-led partnership, but through a one ADB approach, because of course what we look for is how we can develop benefits for all departments that have an interest in leveraging the sorts of expertise that AWS provide, including the way we progress our digital transformation, both as an institution and through our operations. I think we heard in the last session, excellent session, that the pace of technology change is increasing rapidly, never normal, as was said. So we need to ensure that we stay current and that we leverage this new thinking as it's emerging. We have no real alternative but to embrace digitalization and ensure we're developing the skills so that we can be much more impactful as an organization. So it's my great pleasure today to join this event, to partner with Amazon Web Services. I think we've heard some things from Peter which really indicate what an amazing innovation journey the past 20 years have been. And of course, we're very pleased to be partnering with AWS as they move into their next innovation cycle. As Peter said, today, cloud's at the center of any digital transformation journey, and we're no exception. In fact, we're very much part of this journey, and it will become increasingly important for us if we really want to thrive as an organization. So very much look forward to seeing this partnership prosper over the period ahead. It will be an important platform if we're to ensure we're really delivering for our clients. So thank you very much. Thank you, Shirin and Ozier, for taking us forward in this partnership with AWS, and thank you, Peter, for your support and your engagement as well. Thank you.
Thank you, VP Gosper. And now we move on to the document itself. We'll just do a screen walkthrough of the document signed. This document was signed on October 14th between Mr. Dave Levy, VP for US Federal Government from Amazon Web Services, and VP Gosper. And now, if I may ask a photo session At first between VP Gosper and Peter Moore only, so we can switch off our videos.
All right, keep that smile. 1, 2, 3, and smile. Got it. Thank you. Back to you, Ozer.
Thank you. And then one with everyone, Shireen, everyone here, so we can have a group photo.
You can see that the sun's just come through the courtyard here at the ADB building. Feels very good, but its timing is inopportune.
All right, ready? On my count, keep that smile. 1, 2, 3, and smile, everyone. Okay, one more for safety. All right, keep that smile. And 1, 2, 3, smile. Perfect, thank you.
So with this, we conclude this ceremony. Thank you, everyone. I'm really looking forward to this partnership. And apart from the technical pieces, what was said in the panel before about customer obsession and digital, and then trying to see how much of that we can leverage here at ADB. So with that, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. Digital is now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. Hope to see you soon.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, bye.